Hey guys, it's Sean and welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, my name is Sean and I'm currently a recent graduate from Rutgers University where I am in the pre-med track, and right now I am on a gap year in preparation to apply to medical school. So today is a different type of video where we talk about all types of experiences with Rutgers. So this could vary from classes to the bus system to parties, social life, extracurriculars, etc. So without further ado, let's jump straight to it. So the first thing we'll be talk about is the type of campuses on Rutgers. So at Rutgers there are 4 campuses. Well, it's technically 5, but the 4 campuses are Livy, College Ave, Cook Doug, and Bush. So Cook Doug is actually 2 campuses, but we refer to as one because they're connected together and they're within the same region. But we'll talk more about Cook Doug a little later. So the first campus is the Livingston campus, also known as Livy. This is like sort of your modern campus, so it's between College Ave and Bush in terms of the social life. It's right in the middle, as College Ave is more social and Bush is more of antisocial and more studying students usually lives in Bush. Now, during my experience at Rutgers, I noticed that there are 2 different types of sections of Livy. So there's Old Livy and New Livy. So Old Livy goes from the Livingston Gym area all the way to up to where around Taylor Hall is. So some buildings evolve in Old Tilly. It includes Taylor Hall, the Quads, Lucy Stone Hall, the Towers, and the library. And then there's New Livingston, where basically is more modern. So some new buildings on New Livy are the Diner Hall, business building, the Plaza area, which contains a lot of like restaurants and stores, and we also have the apartments as well. I would say it's more of a modern campus for sure because due of its architecture, and it just has more of a modern feel than I feel like than College Ave or Bush or Cook Dog. Again, I'll discuss later why Livingston is more modern compared to the other campuses. So I think Livingston is a very good campus to meet new freshmen because typically Rutgers puts freshmen all over the 4 campuses, but I feel like with the Livingston campus, since there are the Towers and the Quads, a lot of freshmen are going to be on Livy, so I feel like it's just a great opportunity to make new friends from all across majors. Overall, I would say still Livy, for the most part, is still a bit quiet, except for probably the afternoon when classes go on. But it could still get kind of lively in the night, depending on what events go on. For example, maybe there might be a Greek event going on, or there might be some kind of organization holding something during the evening. But usually on the nights, it's usually not as packed or it's not really as busy. I would say though, for the weekends, it's kind of dead, just because there's not really that much events going on. And one quick fact I know is across Livy is that there are a lot of international students at Rutgers. And I mean a lot of international students. Like, it's not a surprise that you see a Lamborghini in Livy and you'll see an international student, owning that vehicle. So that's just an interesting fact I've kind of picked up in the last 4 years. Alright, the next campus I'm going to discuss about is the Bush campus. So this is usually your academic type campus, and what I know is from Bush is there's a lot of STEM majors, like a lot of STEM majors on this campus. And how I know there's a lot of STEM majors is due to a lot of science buildings again. Like literally there'll be stops on Bush campus that are science buildings related. I will say for Bush it gets pretty quiet, and it's usually pretty quiet, and I feel like that's just because of how students are in the campus. It's nothing against it, there's nothing wrong with that, just that that's what I noticed. And I feel like to have a good social life in Bush, you need to definitely be able to make friends in the dorms or apartments or suites, and you just gotta go that way instead of other campuses where you can kind of walk around and make friends that way. I would say the only time it gets sort of active is on the weekends when it's football games, just because there are tailgates that usually go on by the football stadium, and you see a lot of fans, walking across Bush to go to the stadiums and also to being part of the tailgates. So I feel that's the only time that's a little bit active, but other than that, it's pretty quiet. And the one thing I really hated about Bush campus was that everything was spaced out. Like everything was spaced out. Literally, if you calculate the distance from the Rutgers Stadium all the way to like the Bush Student Center, it's a pretty far walk to get there. And once we returned back to school from the pandemic last year, they took away some stops, so that meant that we had to walk longer distances to get to whatever building we need to get to. So that was a bit annoying that way. But even when the pre-pandemic, when there was actually stops and there was actually more stops available, it still was a pretty decent walk. For me though, the best thing about the Bush campus for sure is that there's a gym called Werblin, and for me it's by far the best gym on the whole Rutgers because the amount of machines, the space that has, the amount of things that they have to do in the gym, like racquetball, I think so, playing basketball, a swimming pool. So there's a lot of stuff to do on Bush. Also, what you can do by the gym is you can play soccer or football because there's a literal whole field called University Park and Sports Club field by the gym where you can play soccer or whatever. Okay, so the next campus we're discussing is the College Ave campus, and this is more of like your party campus. So with College Ave, usually you have a bunch of fraternities and sororities lined up within College Ave, whether it's outside of campus or within College Ave. So typically during the nights on the weekdays and in the mornings of the weekends, you will see a lot of fraternities and sororities throwing parties or dages or rages, whatever you want to call them. Like I discussed before with science majors, they could be on Bush as well. So just because you're part of SES, your department might not necessarily be on College Ave. It might be on another campus. College Ave is by far the most popular campus amongst students just due to the amount of stuff you could do on College Ave. So in addition to already the things you do on campus on College Ave, whether that's going to the student center, visiting, friends' apartment, you can also go to downtown New Brunswick and do other stuff there too. They have ample of restaurants, bars. So there's pretty much something to do for everyone on College Ave, whether you're a very sociable person or you're not as social. For College Ave, what some people might be confused about, especially if you're like a freshman, is that College Ave is only one street. It technically is only one street. Yes, you can have some other stuff on George Street, which is right next to College Ave, but College Ave is technically just one street. Once you pass College Ave, it's basically off campus, and once you go within the right of College Ave, if you're facing south towards the yard apartments in Scott Hall, then again you'll be off campus. Again, like I mentioned before, you usually be able to see the fraternities and sororities within College Ave and just right by College Ave. Certain fraternities and sororities could be closer to College Ave, and other sororities and fraternities from the MPHC can be a little bit outside of campus. Still not too much distance within College Ave, but just close enough to campus that's not like a far away walk. With College Ave, something you want to keep in mind, especially if you want to live on College Ave, is that it's going to be pretty loud pretty much day and night. And it can still be loud at night because you often hear people partying. And it literally doesn't matter where you live because you could live on the very north side of College Ave, like Campbell Hall and the River Doors, basically. And you might still probably hear noise. And if you live by like the Yard or by East Avenue apartments, you'll definitely hear noise from just people drinking. And the train station, which is right by College Ave. Alright, so the last campus I'm going to discuss is the Cook Douglas campus, and for me this is by far the most aesthetic view campus and the most scenery campus, just due to the certain layout of the buildings and also just the amount of like nature stuff for there, I guess. So again, technically Cook campus and Douglas campus are two separate campuses, but most people would put it together because they're just so similar and they're close to each other. The main difference is that Douglas is more suburban urban, and usually Douglas starts by College Hall and it ends at like Red Oak Lane, while the Cook campus is more rural and it starts from again Red Oak Lane, the Lippman Drive area, and it ends by like around Henderson Apartments. So this is where the MSGA students live, which is the Mason Groves. The Cook campus is much larger than the Douglas campus. And the one thing I really hate about being Cook Doug is just due to the fact that it's much farther away than the other two campuses. So you have to really plan your time early and make sure that you leave yourself an ample amount of time just in case if, you miss the bus or something. By far, this is the biggest part of the RU school, where basically so much unexpected stuff can happen and it can affect your commute a lot. So for example, a few times at college on the weekends, there'll be a bus that will schedule at a certain time from, to me to drop off and for me to be picked up by the bus and, be able to go to a certain campus, but they can either show late or not even come at all, and then you have to wait a lot more minutes than you were supposed to wait before. So again, like I said before, definitely schedule more time when needed, because again, a lot of unexpected stuff can happen. So for me, I give myself 20 minutes to go within transportation of the B bus, which is from Livy to Bush or vice versa. And then for the LX, F, A, and H, I usually take 30 minutes, as those campuses are a little bit farther between each other. So the LX is from College Ave to Livy, A and H is from Bush to College Ave, and the F bus is from Cook Doug to College Ave and vice versa, and that's express route. And the EE, I usually give myself 40 minutes. I honestly rarely use this bus just because I never really have to shop that much within College Ave. Well, specifically within the off-campus part of Rutgers. And lastly, the Rex B and Rex L, which is from Cook Doug to either Bush or Livy. I will give yourself definitely around 50 minutes since it's farther and it's usually not a lot of stops for these campuses, so you have to really make sure you make it on time and stuff like that. And the times that I mentioned are those times to get pretty much near in time, but if you want to go earlier, always add time earlier. Another thing that I recommend for you guys to do is to definitely let other people get off the bus before you get on. I beg you, please let other people get off the bus before you get on the bus. The amount of freshmen, sophomores, even upperclassmen as well that I seen get on the bus when there's other people coming off the bus is insane. I mean, first of all, it's disrespectful to the people who are actually coming out because they need to get somewhere as well. And second of all, you gotta just hold even more time for everyone else that needs to get to whatever campus they need to be. So please, just wait for other people to get out before you get on. Another thing is please, this is for everyone, please wear deodorant. Please wear deodorant. Because there will be times where it's rush hour and the bus is so packed that you basically be laying up against each other. And if someone or a few people don't wear deodorant, the bus is just gonna smell even more and it'll just go for a pretty unpleasant experience. So I highly recommend to wear deodorant. I mean, this is common sense, but the amount of people that don't wear deodorant on a bus is ridiculous as well. So please wear deodorant. It's very important. There are two apps that I definitely recommend for every student at Rutgers to use, and one is the official Rutgers app, because this shows you the times that the bus will get there, as well as what each stop of each campus is, I guess. And another app I would definitely recommend using is called the Translog app. That is basically when you can see where the buses are currently are driving, so you can kind of estimate, okay, this is how much I actually need to wait. This is also good because it actually gives you a more clear warnings and basically any type of service issues that they might have, maybe because there's like some kind of event going on that some roads might be closed. And yes, they do post as well on the official Rutgers app with the bus section, but sometimes it's not as clear, so I like checking the Translog app for those announcements. And another thing is kind of minor, but you don't have to pull the yellow string when going to near a stop. The Rutgers buses are automatically to stop whatever stop that they have that's posted on the website, so just wait for that bus stop and you should be good to go. The only people I really see doing this is really people who don't ride as much, such as people who are actually from New Brunswick, but honestly, you don't need to pull the yellow string. It's kind of a waste of time. And the last thing I would definitely say to do is stand behind the right line while the bus is in motion, because if you don't do this, then the bus driver is not going to start driving, and again, you just gotta hold other people and you gotta force it to be late when all you could have just done was stay behind the right line. So just do that simple deed and everyone will be good to go. Alright, so there are several buses that Rutgers have that students could go on to get from campus to campus. And the first one I'm going to mention is the LX bus, which basically serves between the Livingston campus and the College Ave campus. This is by far the most packed and most popular bus to be on, just because these two campuses are the most popular campuses at Rutgers. So especially these will get packed at rush hour, because obviously we add traffic and then we add the amount of classes that occur during rush hour, is bound for these buses to be packed. And the good thing about the LX though is that I feel like there are so much buses for the LX, so usually even if you miss a bus for the LX, you most likely get on another one or the following one. So I never had to worry about getting on the LX bus and potentially be late. And one thing I would definitely say is never ever ever get on the LX bus when you're by the SAC stop, which is called the Student Activity Center stop, because no one is going to get off that stop, or very low people is going to get off that stop, which basically forces you to miss that route and often miss the bus to get to whatever you need to go. So I actually recommend to either walk to the student center, which is not that far, it's literally just a straight walk from the SAC, or just walk to the yard. But honestly, I would just recommend going to the student center and just wait there, because more people come out there and you will be. The next bus that I'm going to talk about is the B bus, which basically serves between the Livingston campus and the Bush campus. And for this bus route, there's a lot of bus stops, so I actually recommend, if you can, to get off at an earlier stop, because usually you don't need to walk that far and waiting long to go to student center and stuff like that. So maybe if you wanted to go to the student center, then maybe you can get dropped at the Hill Center stop and then walk straight to go to the student center, which is not that bad a walk. And also there's another type of B bus there is. It's called the B/HE bus. This is basically the same bus as the B bus, except it also serves the one bus stop at the health center. So essentially the same thing. And usually there's much fewer buses of the BHE than the B. Next one that I mentioned is the A bus, which basically goes from the Bush campus to the College Ave campus. So this bus stop basically serves academic buildings first on the Bush, and then it goes to every other building on Bush before it goes to College Ave. And usually for this one, there's plenty of these available. And I mean, again, something gets packed like the B bus, LX, but usually you'll be able to get to whatever destination you need to go to. And then there's the opposite of the A bus, which is H bus, which basically serves housing bus stops first before it gets to academic buildings, and then it goes to College Ave. And again, just like the A bus, there are plenty of these available, so you rarely have to worry about ever missing a bus stop. The one thing I will say though is that the H bus ends earlier than the A bus, so if you have something late, I guess make sure you get that done early, so that you don't have to worry about waiting for A bus and then again have to wait to get to the academic stops first. But this is a minor issue, so this is not really anything too crazy. It's just really preference, and it's really up to you whether you want to stay at College Ave for long or stay on one side of Bush for long. It's ultimately up to you, but for me it wasn't really that much of an issue, but for others maybe they might be more concerned. Alright, the next one is the REXL bus, which basically serves between the Cook Douglas campus and the Livingston campus. This is one of the more annoying buses for me, because first of all, the bus rarely goes through the Cook Doug and Livingston route. For some reason they only have so few buses, and that's very annoying considering they're the two farthest campuses apart from each other. Also, they always take a much longer break at one of the bus stops, which is called Red Oak Lane. Usually they take at least 10 minutes, if not 15 to 20 minutes. Now I understand you need to take breaks, of course, that's just how our brains are primed. You can't always do something every single time, but it should be 10 minutes or less. It shouldn't be 50 to 20, I feel like. Also, there's only 3 stops on Cook Doug and 2 stops on Livy, so basically you're gonna have to walk to pretty much any building you need to get to on Cook Doug. And if you're a freshman and you live in the quads, you're gonna need to walk to the student center to even get on the REXL, which is a little bit annoying again. Another bus I'm going to mention is the Rex B bus, which goes between the Bush campus and the Cook Douglas campus. So this one is even more annoying than the A bus, because not only there's so few bus stops, so there are 2 for Bush and 3 for Cook Doug, and there's no bus stop for the student center. So this is so bad because like basically every other classroom you have to probably take another bus or walk to the Hill Center or the Allison Road classroom stop to just even get onto a Rex B bus. So that's very annoying. Now the best bus I'm going to mention is the F, which basically goes from College Ave to Cook Dog. Now there's two types of buses that go to College Ave and Cook Dog, which is the F and the EE bus. The first one I mentioned is the F bus, and the basic difference between this one is that the F bus is the express route where the EE goes to a street, which I'm going to mention later. So usually this bus is very good in the mornings and early afternoons because there's usually no traffic. You know, people could be at work, do whatever. So usually it takes much quicker to get to College Ave to Cook Dog. The bad thing is that in the afternoon time, late afternoons, this bus is terrible to be on because there's always traffic past College Ave to Cook Dog. Always traffic. So that's very annoying, and that means you have to plan a lot more time to get to Cook Dog. Or I highly recommend that you just get into Cook Dog much earlier so that you don't have to worry about that traffic. The good thing about the F bus is that it covers all Cook Dog stops, so this means that you don't have to walk as much to get to whatever classroom or building you need to get to. And with the EE, the same thing as the F bus, it serves from Cook Dog to College Ave and vice versa. And this is more the local bus because it drives through a street called George Street. And in George Street, there are a few bus stops at George Street. And it been reduced due to COVID because now part of George Street is closed for outdoor dining. But I'm expecting it to open back up pretty soon. If not, if they haven't already, I haven't been there since May, so I'm not sure if they open up already or if they haven't yet. So maybe if a current students watching this, let me know if they open up George Street. So when I was there during the pandemic, it cut through Nielsen Street and then it went back to George Street by New Street. Now the good thing about the EE is that you can save a little bit of time in the afternoons because it's not going to be as much traffic on the road in the afternoon than the highway. And the last one I'm going to mention that I don't think I ever use is the C route, which is the commuter bus. Basically just serves some bus stops that are helpful for commuters. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it because I literally never use this. So again, if someone's watching this that use this bus stop a lot or this bus route a lot, please let me know so maybe other people who are going to be looking to go to this bus that, you know, they find it helpful and stuff. Now classes. Now Rutgers classes are much different than other colleges classes because Rutgers is a much bigger school. So usually as a freshman or even a sophomore, you're going to be in pretty big lectures. So that's going to be a little bit intimidated by some of the people. But by the time you get to junior and senior year, there's going to be small lectures. So it's going to feel a little bit more personal, more one-on-one. So for any lecture, I'll say, even the big or small lectures, I'll say sit in the front or near the front because you might get distracted by people if you sit in the back. So I highly recommend sitting in the front. Also, the professor will notice your face a little more, and this can be pretty important if the professor wants to bump your grade from that, you know, the next grade up. So for example, if you were sitting in the front and you're active participant in that class and you were in the cups of a B plus and A, that professor could bump your grade to A if she sees you in the front and she sees you participating and, you know, going to office hours, stuff like that. And this leads me to a second point, which is to go to office hour when you need help. I feel like office hours is such a hidden gem because not enough people go to it. Especially if you're taking a very tough course, I highly recommend to go to office hours because they will literally help you one-on-one and it's including tuition already. You don't need to any extra pay. And this is also good because if you want to get letters of recommendation for, you know, medical school or health professional schools or any grad school, then this is just a great way to do that because the professor will get to know you more on a more personal level. And even office hours doesn't even have to be used for school sometimes. It can also just be used to have a conversation with the professor, you know? Again, just making that connection. Another thing I would do is to make sure you list the important stuff that's on your syllabi to your calendar or to your planner, whatever you use to organize your stuff. And honestly, I'll do this before the semester even starts because that's where you'll be able to do your work from day one if the professor is already doing lectures from day one. I would say that to not make the mistake of trying to, you know, list important stuff by week 1 or by week 2, because I feel like that's too late and you're already be behind. Unless if you just switch in that class, I would just recommend doing this before the semester even starts. And in terms of exams, I usually give myself a week to review, study of exams. Keep in mind though, whatever time I give myself to review the exams, I'm already reviewing throughout the week as lecture go on. You should not be reviewing for the first time when you actually study for the exam a week or two before. You should already be active reviewing throughout each lecture. But when I actually need to do my proper review, then yes, I give myself a week before the exam. And for harder classes, I usually give myself 2 weeks before an exam. And then for finals, I added 1 or 2 more weeks for that because I know I'm going to need to remember and know more topics. If that exam is not cumulative or that final is not cumulative, I'll just do the same amount of weeks that I did for the midterms. And again, I repeated this a little bit earlier, but just don't be intimidated by the people in your class. Some of these people might have children. They might, be loud or obnoxious, or they might be comparing yourself, or they might be comparing themselves to other people. So honestly, I'll just say focus on yourself and anyone you know in that class that's close to you, and that's pretty much it. Like, just do your work. Obviously, grind through, review each day, or as much as you can, and usually you do pretty good in classes. When you don't do good in classes, you usually get distracted by the people, and you don't review every single time. And that's when you're not going to reap any good benefits. As a freshman or a sophomore, it's very important to make friends and try. It's always good to make friends who are sitting next to you in lectures, because maybe you might miss a lecture because you're sick or you have another event going on. So if you do miss that, then you can always text that friend or call that friend saying what they missed during that day. And last thing I'll just do, if you can, is to join a group meet or Discord for that specific class, because you're able to ask for help in these group chats. Some of these students they do the work pretty early, so you could definitely ask for help. That doesn't mean you should cheat. Alright, I don't tolerate cheat at all, but it's very, very important to ask for help when you need it, because if you don't, you're not gonna get as good of a grade. Also, teachers is a good way to vent with the students. Maybe you don't get the best exam grade, or maybe you realize that some of the questions are wrongly stated, and sometimes it's a good way to vent. The next thing I want to talk about is the types of clubs that you could join. So there are a lot of diverse clubs you could join at Rutgers, and it could go from anything from sports to professions to fraternities, sororities. There are so much clubs you could join, and I feel like if you can't find a club you could join, then you truly didn't really get the experience Rutgers, and you didn't really get to be open-minded. So this for me is how I really got an edge, because before I really got involved in clubs, I didn't really have that much friends. I didn't really go out as much, and I felt like every single time I went out to like a diner hall or to class, I felt like I always saw a group of friends, and I just felt pretty lonely sometimes. And I'll just really join clubs really once you get comfortable with like the academics and schooling, and just narrow down to a few clubs that you like, and then go from there. For me personally, I like to have a balance of having a personal club I like, then have a professional club I like, and then having a social club I like. So I usually have a balance of between 3 type of clubs I usually like, and to go from there. Of course, you can have more clubs or less clubs, but this is just the type of guys I always want to bring, to satisfy all my needs and stuff like that. I highly recommend to get leadership positions after being in a club for a year or two. This way you'll be able to implement your own ideas and ultimate the club better. And honestly, it's such a very rewarding experience, because you can use the experiences you had when you were a general body at those clubs, and use your own ideas you learn or that you want to make, and try to make the school better or try to make that club better altogether. And the last thing I recommend, and it should be pretty obvious, is obviously networking meetings, right? Don't just sit down, or don't just go to the motions, go flow to motions in clubs. Actually interact with the people, know about the major, know about why they join the club, try to vibe with people. It just makes the club experience better. And again, this is how I mainly make friends at Rutgers. Without clubs, I think I would have definitely struggled a lot more with making friends. So that's what I highly recommend. Now the next thing is basically pretty important for anyone who wants to drive at Rutgers, and that is parking. Parking has to be the biggest screw of Rutgers, the biggest RU screw ever, man. because the amount of time I always hear stories about people getting ticketed on spots that I could be allowed in parking is ridiculous. And another thing is though, is that parking is very expensive at Rutgers. It's very expensive. If you're a resident, it's $300 per year. And then if you're a commuter, it's $180 per year. It's pretty expensive, so obviously, with parking, actually make sure you actually be parking at Rutgers, and not just wasting it. As I said earlier, people get ticketed frequently, so make sure to abide by the rules as best as possible. Make sure when you actually get a permit to actually check the lots that you can park in and the times of the lots you can park in. Because if you don't check this, you're gonna get ticketed most likely. Now, there are a few spots you could get away possibly while getting ticketed, but honestly, I would not risk that. And also, I heard one time a student that tried to park in areas they could allow to park, and surprisingly, they didn't get ticketed. But then, once they were about to graduate, that's when the ticket showed up, and it was $700. So I would just recommend to just follow the rules as best as you can, and then park in the lots that you can park in. Obviously, if you get ticketed, then that's when you can try to appeal if you actually park in the right spot. In terms of the times to apply for these permits, as a commuter, apply ASAP. Apply ASAP as a commuter, because these permits are going to be gone by like the first 1 or 2 days. So I would just highly recommend to apply as soon as possible when those applications come out. They usually come out towards the mid or the end of August. As a resident though, you have much more time. I would say you have at least until like the first few weeks, and it might be longer, but I know you have at least the first few weeks, so you have a little more time to decide whether you want to park or not. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is housing. So usually students are either going to live in on-campus housing or off-campus housing. I'm going to discuss first about on-campus housing because that's where I lived at for the 4 years. So for me, in on-campus housing, I would just recommend looking for roommates during the fall semester, because once that spring semester starts, the house application is going to start around that time. So I would just highly recommend you look at those roommates during the fall semester, so you have all your groups lined up, or that one group you're going to be in line up, and you can apply as soon as possible when that application opens in the spring semester. And usually apartments are going to be for upperclassmen. You could get in as a sophomore for apartments, but it's usually one of the older apartments. But for the more popular apartments, like the Livingston apartments or Soldier Truth apartments, which is also called the Yard apartments, those ones you need to be at least a junior. But again, since they're so popular, you actually need to be a senior to get to these apartments, such as Livingston and the Yard apartments. And why, you ask? It's because of seniority points. It's also because of lottery numbers, but it's mainly because of seniority points, and those take priority over lottery numbers. So it's very, very important to have enough seniority points to get to the apartment you want to get into. Of course, as I said before, just make sure when you apply to have all the information you need to get right, because once you have the information, and it's very hard to change the application. Also, I will say this: please make sure that everyone's year in the house application is correct, and make sure each year of your group that's graduating. Because one time with a group that I was in, there was a student who I thought he was a senior, but he was actually a junior. So this caused us to have one less seniority points than we were supposed to have, and we almost didn't get the apartment we got. Like, we were very close to not get the apartment we got. So I would say I highly, highly, highly recommend to definitely apply when you're ready, and of course verify with everyone that the year is correct. And one last thing about on-campus housing is that once you apply, and especially once you actually pick a room, it's binding. So what that means is that when you pick a room, that means that you can't get out of that contract unless you have some kind of reasons that's usually listed on the Rutgers website. Some of these are basically graduation, or financial issues, stuff like that. So it's gonna be only those few reasons why you can't get out of your contract. So you really want to make sure that you actually want to live on campus Now, off-campus house is a little bit tougher because you want to start in advance, basically like near the start of the fall semester, maybe even earlier. Like you basically want to start nearly a year in advance to finding off-campus apartments. So you want to usually, go a year in advance when trying to get these off-campus apartments. Now, off-campus apartments, there are gonna be a lot of people who's gonna be saying, "Oh, they need more people," or you need a few more people for them to dorm off-campus. And those are your first option to go to because basically they have almost everything lined up, and all you have to do on your part is just obviously check the house, make sure it's good for you, and then just go with that. But obviously, if you're going with friends, you have to again, search a house in advance, and go through that whole process of actually acquiring that house or that apartment. Usually, most people dorm in New Brunswick because they usually have more affordable prices, that people group in together, and obviously more people gonna, have groups there together than in other towns such as Edison or Highland Park or Piscataway. If you are going to dorm in New Brunswick though, I'll say just don't go past Lewis Street because after Lewis Street, I feel like that's more the the poor area of New Brunswick, and that's not where as much students are. So I would just say just don't go past that street and just stay within College Ave and Easton Avenue. The next thing I'm going to talk about Rutgers is dining, and this is usually going to be more concerned with freshmen and sophomores because they're required to get meal plans. So as a freshman, when I was at least there, you're required to get 210 meal plan, and usually this meal plan barely no one finishes it, and a lot of people usually have a lot of stuff left. And the only way you can be finishing this basically is if you swipe out to get a lot of snacks, or if you donate and give swipes to other people. And the reason why a lot of people don't finish it because 210 meal swipes is usually around 3 meals a day, and usually it's pretty hard to eat 3 meals a day from dining halls. So that's why a lot of people have a lot of meal swipes left. Once you pass a freshman into a sophomore, you can get a 120 meal plan if you're still living in the residential dorm. So with a 120, this is much more manageable, and you're definitely gonna finish it. The only bad thing about this is that you're probably gonna have to eat other stuff from other restaurants or make your own food. And then you have upperclassmen who are in apartments, so you don't even need to have a meal plan. So for this, honestly, I just recommend you to cook and to buy groceries, as it'll just save you a lot more money compared to if you bought like a smaller meal plan, like a 50 meal plan, and go to College Ave stuff for a while. Now, a quick rundown on some of the dining halls of Rutgers are the Livingston one, the Bush, Brower, which is College Ave, and Nielsen, which is Cooked Up. So first I'm going to talk about is the Livingston one, and for me this was the best dining hall because they have your traditional food and stuff that you have, but then they also have the Mongolian grill, which usually you're able to cook any type of meat you want to cook with a specific type of sauce. And then they also have the pasta bar, which is very good. They have like a lot of options, a lot of types of sauces, and I think they even have a lot of type of pastas there as well, for what I remembered. Also, they have a burger bar, which I'm pretty sure they don't have at any other dining hall, and that's good too because you can have several toppings, stuff like that. So I like the burger bar too. Next one you have is Bush, and for what I remembered, they were pretty average, and really I only went there for either takeout or people went there for like if you want to eat sushi. They also have a decent pasta bar too, so if you want to do that, that's good. The next one is the Brower one, which is College Ave, and this one is not really that good, and I would say it's the worst one out of all the 4 campuses. It was so bad that I actually didn't even eat there once during my time at Rutgers, like not even once. For what I heard, the only thing good they had was stir fry and pizza and ice cream, and that's it. And the last dining hall I'm going to talk about is the Nielsen one, and for me this is the second best dining hall because they have healthy options, and they also have pretty good pasta there too. So if you want to have a more healthy option, I definitely recommend the Nielsen dining hall. You could also use your meal plans for some restaurants and some markets and some cafes. So usually my favorite place to go to for meal plans actually is Henry's, which is basically a type of diner, and like typical diner, you got breakfast stuff, lunch stuff like that, and then you also have takeout as well, which is just great. Unfortunately, I only got to go there for my freshman year, and from that freshman year, it was amazing to go there, but I know they probably have more options maybe since then. And my second place I usually like to go to when I was a freshman or sophomore was a cafe. So usually I went to Rocks Cafe on Livingston, which is really good because they have, again, a good amount of options there. They have a lot of good lunch stuff, and then also have a lot of snacks and even cold options if you want that too. And this is typically the place where freshmen are actually going to be swiping out their meal plans once the end of the semester ends, or the end of the semester is near and they have a lot of meal swipes left. The last thing I'm going to talk about is you could go to a type of market. So usually I went to Kilmer's Market, and the difference between a market and a cafe usually is that they have grocery options. So usually I went to Kilmer's if I wanted to buy any groceries, if I was too lazy to go actually to an actual grocery store that's a few miles away. So in terms of social life, there's two types of scenarios that usually happens between males and females. For females, typically you're probably gonna be able to get in for free, usually, and I think it's pretty obvious for me to say what the sense for that is. But in terms of males, I would say for sure you probably gonna have to either have to pay or you have to come with a few females in order to get into these parties. And I feel like the only way you can get into these parties without either females or have money is to know someone who's actually throwing that party. But once you are over 21, it's usually easy to get into parties, as you have the option of going to bars or more house parties, and of course you know more people because you already were in college for 2 years. And one thing I would say is don't make parties your entire life in college. There's just so much other stuff you can do in college besides going to parties. And also as well, you gotta still do well in school. That's the whole purpose of being in college, is to do well in school in order to get a job, in order to continue on to a professional graduate program. In terms of friends, all I have to say about this is just to make sure that the friends you actually want to be with, to just make plans with them every once in a while so that you don't lose those relationships. Over time, you're just going to be meeting so much people due to the large size of the school and the amount of classes you have to take. So usually if you want to maintain your friends, you're going to have to probably make outside plans outside of classes and stuff like that, so that you're able to actually maintain those friends. For me, my social life was definitely involving usually being in clubs and stuff my early years of college, and then eventually go to more parties that were more or less actually within the minority of workers, which is also known as black workers. And if you want me to talk more about black workers in a separate video, just let me know in the comments. I'll definitely make a video about that, since there's so much other stuff I could talk about black workers. But usually my social life was contained of going to parties that were hosted by my club that I was part of, or going to other clubs and parties that were within black workers later in my college years. Another thing about Rutgers is that the convenience is very good because we're between New York and Philly, so that means there's gonna be a lot of internship and job opportunities in terms of that, and also you're able to do stuff they like to do within those two cities. So I think that's just very beneficial in itself. And the good thing is that there's a train station in Brunswick that's very close to the campus, so it just makes it easier to transport and go from city to city. Now, in terms of the advisors at Rutgers, I feel like it's pretty average to below par, and I say this because it's pretty hard to get deeply with an advisor that serves thousands of students. So for me, I would just mainly focus on the resources that they post online, and then from there, I'll ask questions where I need to. And usually if I need help with access questions and stuff like that regarding scheduling, getting graduation requirements, I just check the resources first, and then I ask upperclassmen who are within the same major as me. And then if those two options don't work, then I ask for an advisor at those departments. So for majors in college, there are two types of majors that students can have. So you can either have a non-intensive credit major or a credit intensive major. So for non-intensive majors, you actually need to take a minor in order to graduate. So this means that most likely you're not gonna have as much space for electives and stuff like that, or taking like extra classes. But for accreditation major, you don't need a minor, so this will give you more opportunities to take electives and take classes that you're interested in, stuff like that. At Rutgers, you have a little bit more time to select the major, as usually they actually offer like fixed classes, Bryce classes. This basically gives you a overview of several career fields, and from there you'll be able to decide, okay, do I want to be in this type of industry or do I want to focus on another industry? So other than that, I would just take the time, to take a few classes of stuff and subjects you're interested in, and then go from there, to determine the major you actually want to become. And in terms of the core requirements, these are requirements that every student has to take in order to graduate. And what I recommend is that to spread them out during college and to not take them all in within 2 to 3 semesters, because it just means that your major requirements are going to take longer. And also, you might get burned out because you're going to be taking the similar classes all throughout those few semesters. So I'll just say definitely spread it out. Maybe take at most 2 of the gen ed classes per major, and then leave the rest to your major classes and your minor classes if you have those. And also, what I did to make sure I did well in these gen ed classes is to check out a resource from the subreddit of Rutgers, and you could literally find a bunch of easy gen ed classes that you take in order to actually do well in those classes. Remember how I said that the advisors were pretty average, and that I usually use other sources in order to make sure I graduate on time and make sure I pick the right amount of classes? Well, these are the 2 websites I usually use. So one website I used was Degree Navigator, and this pretty much allowed me to see where I was on track to graduate in terms of the general course I have to take and the major course I have to take. And what I recommend at the start of college actually is to make a Google document and put every class you need to take to graduate. So this way you don't have to log into Degree Navigator, and you can just use your schedule and the classes you take in per semester in your documents, and just check as you go. And another website that I use is Rubric, and this allows me to actually input the classes I need for a semester. So the good thing about Rubric is that they actually have another website called Course Schedule Planner that allows you to basically transfer your saved schedules onto Rubric so that you have to type each number for that class. And what I recommend with Rubric is to make sure you press register at the very start of the time that that's open for registration, because you open it any later and you're at risk to losing the classes you have to take, and then you have to reschedule classes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's been a while since I posted a video, and that was just mainly due to me studying for the MCAT, and also it was just mainly for me to actually enjoy my summer during that time. But hopefully, as I eventually finish the MCAT, and eventually when I'm more settled to this post-college life, that I'll be able to make more videos. But if you enjoy it, give this video a like, comment down below what I missed in this video about Rutgers, especially your current student. And I was thinking about doing a future video today about skits basically related to my experiences with pre-med, college, and maybe eventually medical school. So let me know if you guys would like that. But other than that, I'll talk to you guys later, and peace.